rest of 10 questions of 2016 paper 2 is here we are going to discuss upon. So as we discussed before 10 questions, so now question number 11, effectiveness of the government system at various level and people's participation in the governance system are interdependent. What is asking? Effectiveness of government system at various level and people's participation in the governance system are interdependent. Okay, so both are interdependent. Discuss the relationship between. Okay, what we want to hear, discussing the relationship between both of them, governmental system and the governance. So what is in context of India, in governance, especially in democracy, participation of people in system improves effectiveness of government system. So what is the governance? Governance is the truly the action part, okay, the execution part of government, where what we want, participation, okay, of people. All right, so participation of stakeholder and beneficiary can guide implementation of governmental progress. So stakeholders also there, and implementation of the governmental program also. So in India, citizen participation in governance is very less for various reasons. What are the reasons? Like citizen participation is less in India. One is bureaucratic procedure, rules and regulation, lack of transparency, lack of accountability, lack of much of rule based system, corruption, complex governmental system, complex governmental schemes and programs, and trickle down effect is not effectively working according to that, and the peoples in the governmental system are not so much honest, not so much accountable toward the government. So to make a government program and service more effective, and beneficiary should be taken on the board. Like what we want to do for that, we want more participation in policy making, we want more participation in decision making. So right to information, citizen charter, panchayati raj system, gram sabha, lok adalat, these all kind of system, what is there? Right to information, citizen charter, panchayati raj system, gram sabha and lok adalat. These are five parameters which we wants to govern to make the more effective, more accountable and more responsive government. So we want more effective governance system and efficient policy implementation also. That's why, but unfortunately in India, many times the beneficiary are not aware of new schemes which was launched by government, because our peoples are not that much literate, they are not that much aware about the new policies. They are not aware, because of village kind of system is there, rich and poor divide is very vast there, literacy illiteracy division is very vast there, lack of transparency, lack of accountability. So this system is unfortunately not working according to that. But still we want government policy should be reached towards the downtrodden society, towards the marginalized people. So their government is recently launched Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and campaign to provide toilet to every home and need for more participation to get effective result. So this is the basically our government doing to make the government more participative, and it should be more governance rather than government. Okay, now next question. In the integrity index of Transparency International, India stands very low. Discuss briefly the legal, political, economic, social and cultural factors that have caused the decline of public morality in India. So first of all, what is the public morality? Morality is the state of condition where Transparency International as a big organization in the integrity index. In this organization also disclosed many issues regarding the corruption, regarding like India is 76 among 168 countries. This rank is on behalf of 2016 we are discussing here. So low score like 38 out of 100 in the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index of 2015. So public morality in India has declined. Why it declined? Because of legal factors like lack of strict implementation of anti-corruption law, complex procedure, lack of enthusiasm on parts of executive and judiciary to act strictly, and corruption is magnificent there, corruption is multilateral there, and disintegration of public to fight against the corruption. There is lots of agony in between the government and people. So these kind of issues we wants to be curb with the honesty, with the accountability, with the transparency, and with the responsiveness. So starting from opaque funding system of political party to excessive use of muscle and money power during the election, buying of votes to buying of tickets, non-implementation of election promises, changing of party, and no ideology on the parts of politics have affected trust of people over party system. As last time we discussed the what is the lacunas in party system, this also we can include in that. So society has accepted the corruption as a part of system even for similar public services. There is no shunning against corruption office holder. Public is rather in absence of effective remedy taken bribing as a measure for getting the work done urgently, because they want their work should be urgent. I want to describe here one incident. Once I go through the collectorate near to our home. So there was one clerk. So when I went through there, I just wanted to make my caste certificate at that time. So I asked to them that how what is the procedure to make a caste certificate. So I think there is only 20 200 or 150 to 200 rupees we required to make a caste certificate, or only 100 rupees, like this is only the fees. But what he is saying to me is saying to me, one of the person came to me and he given me 1000 rupees to make a caste certificate, because he wanted that certificate should be made in 5 days, and he was very much busy because tight schedule of his office and all that. So we just taken them 1000 rupees from them, and if you are not known to us, we also charge similar price to you. So that kind of case studies as I seen in my personal life also. So we should aware about this kind of things which are really very much dangerous for us, because as we are giving 1000 rupees as 5 times more money we are giving them, rest we are making whole system polluted also. So we should not follow this kind of system, because this is injurious not for us also, for other peoples also. Okay, so culturally there has been no strengthening of moral and value system in society in recent time. Society has accepted success and riches of people valid even if amassed through unethical means. Lack of moral education, systematization of corrupt practices, strengthening of corruption and chain and social hierarchy has resulted into corruption. So these kind of systems which are really very much not good for our particular system. Okay, so here what Transparency International wants to point it out that our corruption perception index is only 76 rank there, and 38 we got out of 100 because of the lacunas in our system. So now what winding this economic gap among the different classes of society is also reason, like the economic gap is widening right now, so it is the main reason of corruption. Now the next question is the government system responded what it's going to ask about us. It's asking about, has the Indian governmental system responded adequately to the demand of liberalization, privatization, globalization started in 1991? What can government to be responsive to these important changes? So as per that, we should have a normal knowledge about what is LPG, and when this LPG reforms came, like due to the forex crisis was there, so there was LPG reforms. As the name of suggests, economic and commercial policies were made liberal to allow business to grow. So henceforth the attitude of government was curtail private sector by keeping majority of area under license. The procedure were liberalized and made open for private sector. So what was problem before that? There was a hierarchical system, there was a rule based organization, there was only government was predominant over the whole government system. So after LPG reforms there was the governmental attitude has been changed. Now the governmental system has been curtailed and now private system become the majority partner with the government also, because now less license system, less quota system was there. So open private sector was come and participated with the government. So privatization of government PSU started in phase manner to reduce direct stake in market. Like a stake in market will be reduced. Government had shaken off the responsibility of fulfilling market demands by allowing private sector to play major role. Now private sector is there to play a major role, except few important section of government decide to disinvest its stake from PSU. So now what is the government's role? Its important like government are not now working for the important sectors, like government decide to disinvest its stake from PSU. Now PSU are like disinvestment is there, privatization, like we saw privatization of major banks in Indira Gandhi time. Also there was a privatization in 1969. Okay, after that also 1980 there was a privatization of six big banks. Now again presently government merged the big banks with the smaller banks. Like in 2019 there was also merger of banks and privatization of banks. So this was the reforms which government wants to recapitalization in the Indian economy. So globalization was demand of time that India has missed due to inward looking import substitution policy. Now by LPG India allowed foreign companies and investor by opening its markets. Okay, now these companies will come at India, and domestic industry also can learn the experience from them to compete with international players. And it also help in avoiding knee jerk of Indian industry. So what is the knee jerk of Indian industry? Like what is the lacunas, what is the limitations that can be reduced only with competition, and only with the true competition between the government and private institution. So Indian LPG has been slow, steady, constant. Okay, but still they are ongoing process, because PSU has been have been privatized, and even all license are done away with private sectors. Like they do not want now license and quota raj policies and all that. Police raj also abolished now, and not all sector are fully open to investment by private and foreign companies, but government has some core sectors, like six core sectors are still now four. I think railways now also privatized, and many more sectors are also privatized. So some sectors are reserved for still for government only. Okay, now next question is what? uh, Next question is traditional bureaucratic structure and culture have hampered the process of socio-economic development in India. Comment. So it is asking about traditional bureaucratic structure and culture, and how it hampered the process of socio-economic development. What is a traditional bureaucratic structure? It is like red tapeism, complex procedure, rule based organization. Socio-economic development agenda is primarily given to the government, but still there is corruption, still there is inefficiency, still there is so many lacunas in the government. So role of bureaucracy is to maintain law and order, to collect revenue, to implement government project and scheme, identify problems at a ground level, at policy level, and making the decision making and making the incentivizing towards the policy inputs. So what are the reasons here? There is no decision making, there is no incentivizing toward the policy inputs, and there is prevalent corruption, there is a delay in decision makings and all that. So what government wants to do? Government wants to make more participative approach. Government wants to do more centralized decision making and a strong hierarchy. So there should be no rules and regulations, and bureaucratic approach should be changed. Okay, So healthcare issue, primary education, poverty alleviation, women and minority empowerment, and employment generation, even infrastructure building area relevant to common men have been lacking in progress. So these are the lacunas which are in really traditional bureaucratic structure and culture, which are hampering the socio-economic development of the country. Okay, so there is a mafia raj. We can say there is a mafia raj, inefficient officers, inefficient administration, and even government taken many initiative like citizen charter, transparency, right to information act, participation through panchayati raj, and accountable and answerable government, useful and result with self-evident government, role of media, education and awareness. All these has been changed with the government. So socio-economic development requires bottom-up approach, and therefore sensitization of bureaucrats towards problem, that is important. Now next is examine the main provision of national child policy and throw light on the status of implementation. So first of all, for this kind of questions we should have some basic idea about what is the child policy. Okay, and what why this child policy is important for us. What is the child policy, and why child policy is important for government, that is why this is important for students, why this is important for common children's, and what are the main parameters which are very important to implement this national child policy 2013. The ministry also developed, like Ministry of Women and Child Development is responsible to draft the plan for draft national plan of action for children's, as we all know. So policy recognize every person below the age of 18 year as a child and cover all children within the territory and jurisdiction of the country. So below the age of 18 year, there should be a child below the age of 18 year. Okay, the policy has identified four key priorities. First is survival, second is health, third is nutrition, fourth is education, fifth is development, then protection, then participation. These are some parameters which was important in national child policy to provide universal and equitable access to quality early childhood care and education to all children below 6 year age, ensure that every child in the age group of 16 to 14 years is in a school, promote affordable and accessible quality education, foster support and intersectoral network and linkage to provide vocational training and enabling the career counseling and vocational guidance also, ensure that all of the school children are tracked, rescued, rehabilitation and have access to right to education, and address discrimination of all forms of in school and foster equal opportunity and treatment and participation. As per that, prioritizing the education for disadvantaged group by creating enabling environment, ensure physical safety and child and provide safe and secure learning environment, ensure that all process of teaching and learning child friendly, ensure formulate and practice of pedagogy that engage that delights children. Okay, so in term of implementation of policy, still universal education, quality of education, physical safety, continuing child labor in the society, like we are implementing lots of criteria, but still there are lots of problems, like we do not have safety, we do not have child, there is child labor is prevalent in the society, quality of education is not good, coordination is not between the children's, and various law and establishment of implementing agency are major issue to tackle the this issue. Okay, so what is next, what government should do to tackle these kind of issues. So as per this, government should do to make sure that policies are at we are implementing at ground level, and that policies are very much relevant towards the children, and they are really real beneficiary of that particular policies, are getting that benefits from all that kind of policies. Now the next question is what? Demographic dividend in India will remain only theoretical unless our manpower becomes more educated, aware, skilled and creative. What measures have been taken by the government to enhance the capacity of our population to be more productive and employable? So here is the question asked over the demographic dividend. So first of all, what is the demographic dividend? That should be in our mind. Demographic dividend is the particular refers to the economic growth potential that can result from shift in population of age structure, mainly when the share of working age population. Okay, so what is the working population is larger than the non-working age population, that is called the demographic dividend. And demographic dividend gives benefit like increased labor supply, increased national savings, and due to less number of dependents will be reduced, human capital will be generated, increasing domestic demand both about by increasing GDP per capita income, decreasing the dependency ratio. These are the basically the parameter which are very important to get the demographic dividend. Okay, however, availability of labor supply in India cannot be absorbed productivity unless they are educated. Still we have the demographic dividend, we have the age group of 15 to 45, like 55% or more than that, but still we do not have the skilled labor, we do not have the educated labor, we are not that much creative. Rather than saving in governmental and personal expenditure due to less dependency ratio, we are doing expenditure, we are doing government, we are assuring the government policies, but still working age population is not able to contribute in national production. Okay, human capital and increase in domestic demand also depend on employment and increase in PPP. So if there is good amount of demographic dividend, so that can be helpful to us to maintain the human capital, to increase the domestic demand, and also depend on employment and increase the PPP. So that will also increase our demographic demand, human capital, and also employment will be generated, and PPP model will be increase the particular labor force. So government has launched National Skill Development Corporation, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, National Skill Development Program, and Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana to impart the vocational and skill based education. Make in India, Digital India, Skill India program are also relevant in utilization of working age population. So what is progress related to increase the national literacy, right to education, national policy of education, and national policy of children? These all kind of policies are very important towards us, like we are utilizing our demographic dividend meaningfully. Okay, so increasing skill and productivity and employability is very important for Indian youth to be more important and more strong towards to do work. Now next question is question number 17. The border and objective The borders, aims, and objective of WTO are to manage and promote international trade in the era of globalization. This question is asking about the globalization and WTO and its role. Okay, but the Doha round of negotiation seems doomed due to differences between developed and developing country. This Doha round was the older round where the differences between the developed and developing countries was aroused and discussed in the Indian perspective. So this question is asking about the Doha round and its perspective. Okay, and the development of WTO, and what WTO did to reduce the power differences between developed and developing country. Okay, so there is broader aim. WTO aims to manage the and promote international trade and make political boundaries irrelevant for purpose of trade. So what is globalization? Globalization is a state of condition where the national market is directly correlated to the international market. In that context, that multinational organizations like WTO and UNO and many kind of organizations are working to influence the economic, social and political and different kind of arenas. Okay, that is kind of globalization. So after adopting globalization in 1991, India has played important role in WTO. India providing a market of 1.2 billion peoples and also remained a great attraction for all global players. Other than that, India also did very much to India also worked towards to reduce this kind of digital divide and the divide between the government and the other organizations also. So wait a minute. So there is the debate over the developed and developing country in regarding the WTO. So what is that debate? So special safeguard mechanism for protecting the interest of poor farmer in developing countries yet to be resolved. There is the poor farmers in our country. They are not getting the appropriate prices of their food grains. So that is the big issue in present criteria. So special safeguard mechanism was protecting the interest of poor farmers in developing countries yet to be resolved, and India and other developing country do not want discussion on labor and environmental related issue. So in Doha round, what was the issues? There was labor issue, there was environmental related issue, skills related issue, education related issue. They can be discussed in ILO and UNFCCC. Terming them as non-trade issue, India wants them to be negotiated separately. Okay, so this is the issue in Doha round, and that was the unresolved issue. Now, next question was evaluate the economic and strategical dimension of India's look east policy in the context of post Cold War international scenario. So, India's look east policy, initiated in 1991, marked a strategic shift in India's perspective of the world after the Cold War. After Cold War, what India adopted it was the look east policy. It is an effort to cultivate extensive economic strategic relation with nations of Southeast Asia in order to strengthen its standing as a regional power and as a counterweight to the strategic influence of China. What India wanted in the after Cold War, there was a two big powers, USA and USSR, but still there was a Southeast Asian nation to strengthen. They also wanted to strengthen their power. China also wanted to strengthen their power. So sensing the shift of global economic trend towards Southeast Asian country, India has entered into numerous free trade agreements with East Asia economics, including comprehensive economic cooperative agreement, Singapore, and Italy early harvest scheme with Thailand. So at that time there was a continuously shifting of that like bipolar world was there. So that was the situation where India wanted to establish its own independence, its own personality should be established in front of the whole world. So that's why India what adopted it adopted the friendship with the Southeast Asian nations. So India did some works like including comprehensive economic cooperation agreement like CEPA was there, and with Singapore, an early harvest scheme with Thailand, while it is negotiating agreement with Japan, South Korea, and Association of Southeast Asian Nation (ASEAN). So India did partnership with all these kind of countries like Japan, South Korea, and ASEAN, negotiating with them agreements also. India signed trade agreements and increased its investment in Burma, and also private sector activity remained low, but India state corporation have lended lucrative contrast for industrial projects and construction of major road and highway pipeline and upgrading the ports. So what India did at that time, India even signed trade agreements and increased the investment within Burma, and also private sector also included like corporation have lended lucrative contracts for industrial project and construction of major road, highway, pipelines, upgrading ports. That was the India taken the strategic dimensions towards the look east policy and economic development of that particular area. So ties have been strengthened with Taiwan, with Japan, with South Korea over common emphasis on democracy, human rights, and strategic interest. South Korea and Japan remain amongst the major source of FDI. Okay, FDI and foreign direct investment, foreign institutional investment. So South Korea and Japan was the remain the major sources. India signed free trade agreement with Sri Lanka and Thailand and stepped up its military cooperation as well. By engaging with Southeast Asia country, frequent security and strategic dialogue, joint exercises, consultations, and exchanges of views, areas of global security, counterterrorism, security, and establishing the strong commercial, cultural, and military ties with them. That was the main stand which was India taken during the Cold War and during the Look East policy. Okay, now we are going to discuss the next question. Next question is increasing cross-border terrorism attack in India and growing interference in the internal affair of several member states by Pakistan are not conducive for the future of SARC. So what this question wanted to ask, the keyword is the SARC, South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, and what are the growing what are the growing terrorist attacks with the cross border terrorist attacks, and what are the internal affairs with that, and several member states by Pakistan are not conducive for the future of SARC. So we are discussing about the Pakistan and member of Pakistans which are not according to the internal affairs of SARC, and they are increasing even cross-border terrorism. These are some key points where we want to talk about. So SARC was founded Dhaka 8 December 1985. First of all, this fact is important for prelims. Like it was found in Dhaka, okay, Bangladesh, and 8 December 1985. The organization promote development of economic and regional integrity between the countries, and yeah. So active support to like what was there was a problem with Pakistan was active supporter to the Taliban, even causing the deadly attacks. Afghanistan even want to take Pakistan to UN, okay, but Pakistani meddling in Afghanistan dated before 1979 Soviet invasion was there. So Bangladesh strongly protest against the statement issued by Pakistan followed the execution of Mr. Qasim Ali during Islamabad remark and interference in its internal affairs. So Bangladesh also strongly protested against the Pakistan during that period. Like Mir Qasim Ali was there, and terming the Islamabad's remark and interference in its internal affair. Okay, so it was terming that Islamabad is interfering in Bangladesh affairs. On the trade liberalization and cross-border trade in energy during the last year, Pakistan pulled back when the agreement were ready for signature. Okay, there was the liberalization and cross-border trade energy agreements. So Pakistan even pulled back from that agreement also. Pakistan's policy towards India has been making difficult for effective implementation of SARC policy. So what was the issues there? One issue was the Taliban. Second issue was the UN. What was the Afghanistan telling against the UN, against Pakistan in UN? What was the Bangladesh stand over the Pakistan during the SARC meetings? that were also important because they were protesting against the Pakistan. Mir Qasim Ali was there, execution of Mir Qasim Ali, and on the trade liberalization and cross-border trade in energy, like Pakistan pulled back the many agreements. That was the big policy change in that particular arena. So the SAC policies were making very difficult to be effective implementation of that. So the SAC process has been in limbo since India-Pakistan tension spiked after a terror attack on Indian Army camp. Uri attack was in 2008. Then attack in the Mumbai, like Uri attack in recent time, like it was, I think it was 2016 or 17, and it was in 2015 and 16. And after then Mumbai attack 2008 also affected smooth functioning of SARC. So these are some lacunas, these are some points which we can describe about what was the main issue behind the SARC was not effective functioning. So SARC summit scheduled to head in Pakistan was called off as India, Bangladesh, Bhutan and Afghanistan decided to boycott it. Even Pakistan was boycotted by Bangladesh, Bhutan, and Afghanistan. It was for the first time that four country boycotted at SARC summit because of Pakistan and terrorism, and the internal affair was not working according to that, because of the terrorism was spreaded all over the that organization. Okay, now the next question: what are the aim and objective of MacBride Commission of UNESCO? What is India's position on this? So this question is the from current affair at that time, and these question like MacBride Commission of the UNESCO. So common objective, as we all know what are the objective of UNESCO, we can discuss here also that objective, because as we are reading this question MacBride Commission, that is very difficult to give the answer because this is quite very different kind of organization which we even listening first time. So we can give the common agendas of UNESCO here, so that will be fulfilling our answer here also. The MacBride report, also known as Many Voice One Word, was a 1981 UNESCO prediction written by International Commission for the Study of Communication Problem. As we know that this organization is specifically for the communication, as this question is very difficult because MacBride Commission we even don't know, because if we are reading daily newspaper, then only can we give the answer of this kind of question. Otherwise we should skip, or we should do not attempt this kind of questions. But still we can give our own agendas or own viewpoints to write down even 5 to 10 lines, so that can be fulfilling the requirement of that particular question. Okay, so study of communication problem, it was named after its chairman Sean MacBride, Irish Nobel laureate. Aim of commission was to analyze communication problem in modern society, particularly related to mass media, news, consider the emergence of new technology, suggest a kind of communication order to diminish these problems to further peace and human development. It also new word information and communication order. Okay, the report identified the problem like concentration of media, commercialization of media, unequal access of information and communication. Commission proposed democratization of communication and strengthening of national media to avoid dependence on internal source internet-based technology considered in the work of commission. So it served as a mean of furthering MacBride vision. While the report had strong international support, it was condemned by the United States and UK as an attack on the freedom of press, and both countries withdrew from UNESCO in protest in 1984 and 1985. So that was the reason they withdrew as per that respectively, and later rejoined in 2003 and 97 respectively. So the commission seminal session on the new technology to address the identified problems. What in New Delhi, Indian member of the commission was Bubli George. India supported and accepted the report findings. So these kind of questions are like there is 20 questions, but still one question will be the very difficult question in that time. So you should have to aware about the particular one question only. So that question should be give the answer as per your abilities, as per your consciousness and as per your attentiveness during that time period. Okay, thank you. Hope you enjoyed this lecture.